In this problem, we're asked to solve it. In other words, we want to try to find out what y equals. This is a very complex problem, but it's not too bad once we figure out how to actually set it up with finding the lowest common denominator. So that's the very first step here. We have three parts, two of which are fractions here, and one's a whole number. The very first thing we have to do is try to find the least common denominator here. So if we were to factor this one here, y squared plus y minus 12 would give us factors of y plus 4 times y minus 3. So that's our very first step here, is to actually factor that one so we can see what the factors are. Now if you'll notice over here I already have a y minus 3. So I have to find what the least common denominator is between y minus 3. This denominator here is just 1, so that's not real tough. And this one has factors of y plus 4 times y minus 3. So our least common denominator in this case is actually going to be y plus 4 times y minus 3. I got that from right here and over here. This one already has the y minus 3, so I'm just missing the y plus 4. That would be my least common denominator. Okay, now that I've identified my least common denominator, I'm going to have to multiply all three parts of this rational equation by that lowest common denominator. I'm going to multiply this one here by y plus 4 times y minus 3. I'm going to multiply this one here by y plus 4 times y minus 3. And I'm going to multiply this side over here of the equation by y plus 4 times y minus 3. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Now it showed up really small only because I'm trying to fit it all on one screen. But as you can see, I'm multiplying each part here by that lowest common denominator, y plus 4 times y minus 3. Every single part here, here you'll see the 1, and on this side of the equation as well. Okay, so whenever I end up with that, here's kind of how it's going to end up looking. And all I did here is just kind of simplify this, negative 4 over y plus 3, and I'm multiplying this, so I'm multiplying on the top, so I get that y plus 4 times y minus 3 up top. This one's just 1, so that one kind of ended up being pretty easy. And then this one over here is the same thing, negative 10 times that lowest common denominator again. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I actually go through these and I see, well, which ones can I cancel? If you'll notice here, I have a y minus 3 on top and bottom here, so I'm going to simplify that one. I'm going to cross those off. Those are gone at this point. On this one here, this is all again over 1, so I can't really cross any of those off. But if I go just a little bit further here, I notice I can cross off the y plus 4 on both top and bottom. And then you'll notice here I can also cross off my y minus 3 on top and bottom. So now I've crossed a lot off all over here. Now I need to kind of just simplify it just for a little bit here. Okay, so I'm going to try to see what I have left here. I'm left with a negative 4 times y plus 4. I'm definitely left with this middle section here. And then over here it looks like the only thing I'm left with is a negative 10. So let's write that all down here. Again, my negative 4 times y plus 4 came from right here. That's what was left. Here I didn't cross off anything, so that's where my information came from here. And then on my right-hand side over here, I crossed off everything except for my negative 10. Okay, so now I need to look at combining what I can. I need to, right here I see that this is still multiplying, so let's take care of that one first. And you can use any method that you want, the box method, FOIL method, any of those work just fine. But if you multiply all those through, you're going to end up with this, y squared plus y minus 12. You'll notice that was the same as my lowest common denominator as well. So that might make it a little bit more easy for you, but nonetheless. And then now, next what we need to worry about is distributing this negative 4. And remember, the negative 4 goes to the y as well as this 4 over here. So we'll distribute that one out now. That gives me negative 4y minus 16. Now that I have that portion done, I need to look and see if there's anything here that I can combine. Well, if you look right here, I've got a negative 4y and a positive y. I can combine those two for sure. And I also look over here and I see that I can combine a negative 16 and a negative 12. I can combine those two. So now I'm going to simplify those. That gives me y squared minus 3y minus 28. Now I have a quadratic on that side, and I've got this negative 10 over here. I'm going to move this 10 over to this side, that way I can set this side equal to 0 to make it easier to solve. That means I'm going to add 10 to both sides. I do that, and here's my quadratic that I'm left with, y squared minus 3y minus 18 equals 0. Again, I got this negative 18. I added 10 to both sides right here and give me negative 18. Okay, now that I'm left with this, I can either plug that into the quadratic formula and see what I end up getting, or I can factor it. And I look at this and I'm factoring two numbers that multiply together to give me negative 18, but add together to give me negative 3 would be a negative 6 and a positive 3. So that one factored really nice. I've got y minus 6 times y plus 3. Now I'm getting closer to the end at this point. I said each one of these equal to 0, y minus 6 equals 0, and y plus 3 equals 0, and I solve each one of those. And if I do that, I find out that y equals 6 on this side. I put this side y plus 3 equals 0, move the 3 onto the other side. That gives me y equals negative 3. So now it feels like we're done, but we're not quite done. An important aspect here is that you have to take each of these answers, plug them back into your original equation, and make sure that it's going to work. If it does not work, that's called an extraneous solution. It does not work. It is not your answer. So some of these you'll end up with two answers, but only one of the two will work. In this case, if you plug both of these back in, both of these two work. So both of these two are my answers.